Hello, everybody. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Georgianna.
And this is Wholehearted Loving, where we teach you simple tools to grow the muscles you need to be with big feelings and overwhelming sensations in your body.
Whether you have active challenges in your life or relationships, or whether you're just here to learn to be kinder to yourself, we pull out all the little things that make life feel better, the things that give you a sense of hope and direction.
So if you're too hard on yourself or on others,
if you want to feel real, deep connection in your life and relationships,
even if you want to reprogram your inner critic while you're sleeping,
this is a great place to be.
So welcome, and we hope this episode brings you just the tidbit you needed today.
Enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about finding the sweet spot in your body and your life and your relationships. We're going to relate this with a simple practice that we will describe how all of this relates in all these other magnificent ways. Find self-reflection prompts for this episode and every episode on our Instagram at Wholehearted Loving, and you can learn about how to practice with us live at wholeheartedloving.com. And let's get into the practice.
Okay, so this practice you can do, I think we're going to do sitting, right? You can do sitting, you can do standing. Either is fine. I would like to do it sitting for me today. I've done both. And so sitting, just notice you on your butt and no need to really change anything, but just notice where you're at. And then play with, this is all play. Play with leaning back a little, where it's just starting to not be comfortable anymore. Notice how that feels. And then come back and find where that sweet spot of, oh yeah, that feels better. And like notice not only where that spot is or what posture you're holding or, how your weight is distributed sort of underneath you, but like notice how it feels to discover a sweet spot. How does your body know it's a sweet spot? So I would say do it again. Try it again. Lean back. It's like one of those toys, those weighted toys we talked about before, and you like push them a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they like find their way back to center, right? Like even those like cheap punching bags, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So find where that sweet spot is of like, oh yeah, it feels good here. And then try maybe leaning forward and noticing, hey, which part of leaning forward feels good? And then when does it start getting into territory where it no longer feels good, right? And Steph sort of taking it a little bit to the side and forward. And then when you're ready, try to find your sweet spot again. And notice that the sweet spot isn't necessarily, there's not just one sweet spot that's permanent. It could be, but maybe it's a new sweet spot. So playing with that, leaning forward. Notice there's maybe a whole range or maybe a small range where leaning forward feels okay. Or maybe you're like, none of leaning forward feels okay. Or maybe your tolerance is very high and a lot of leaning forward feels okay. But how does your body start letting you know like, oh, it's starting to not feel good anymore? And what is it like to have permission to reset?
Is it worthwhile or disruptive to address the difference between something that feels familiar and something that feels okay or decent?
Yes. So notice what feels familiar and what feels decent. Notice what is it like to hang in some other places? And notice where it might be new or uncomfortable, but not necessarily bad for you. Mm-hmm. Right? But also not necessarily way better feeling. Like, so for me, if I find this sweet spot where I'm not really leaning any more forward or back, but there's something that straightens up just a touch. It's like it's like as if there was a string from my belly button of someone pulling me just a little bit more forward and someone behind me having their hands very gently on my shoulders, just opening up my shoulders a bit more. There's some version of that feels too taut and robot-like. But if I bring a tiny softening to that, there's a bit of a sweet spot there. And by sweet spot, I mean I'm like, I don't hang out here very often. But there's something about this that feels a little bit more sturdy or energizing, or I'm a little bit more here, or I feel stronger, or like slightly better. Than if I go to like what's familiar.
Yeah. I'm noticing subtle differences and I'm also making meaning. So leaning back, like the further back I lean until I'm literally lying down and completely uninvolved from any situation, feels very comfortable. I'm going to lean all the way back.
Yes. Yeah.
The leaning in, I'm reminded of my mom telling me to hurry, walk faster, chop, 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 chop. And so I'm leaning forward, and then she's like, you're leaning forward, stand up straight. And I'm like, I think I'm trying to get the hell away, just off with my anxiety, leaning forward.
But this is what's great, to recognize you're like, oh, when I lean back, there's part of me that's like, hallelujah.
Yeah.
All right. I get to withdraw, check out, be in my own world a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. You may also want to play in the space where you're leaned back a little less, or you're coming forward a little bit more, and then just scanning. So your body might say, oh, unsafe, right? Only safe when I lean back completely, because leaning forward means mom saying chop, chop, and that's wasn't safe, didn't feel good. But you might lean forward and play in the space of fully lean to a little bit more forward, where you can look around and see cues that, hey, my mom actually isn't here. Nobody is on the bullhorn saying, Stephanie, chop, chop, let's go, right? And so that you get to reclaim this space for yourself, as it might be okay to hang in the space. Safety and comfort is not only in the leaning back, right? And for some of us, it's leaning forward is scary. Like for me, it's like, I'm not supposed to take up space and be the center of attention and be the spotlights on me. So there's a little bit of up and forward that, like, I can feel it right now. If I bring myself up and forward, there's a little excitement in me of like, oh, I get to be here. And a little bit of like, holy crap, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. So there's a lot that can come up for us just in a very simple movement of forward and back, finding center. And what's interesting is forward doesn't necessarily always have to relate to the same thing and be the metaphor for the same thing as with leaning back. So for example, I've also in my life been very much a people pleaser. Let's scan the environment for potential danger and conflict and try to mediate the conflict first so that I'm safe. So in that, there's a little bit of forward leaning energy of like, what are they talking about? Like, what's happening? Are they starting to fight? Like there's a leaning forward energy to my living when I'm in that space and take on that responsibility. So I also want to practice, what is it like to lean forward? Because part of that is very familiar in that context, leaning forward. What is it like just to sit back a little and remind myself, that's their stuff, not mine. And even as I say that, those words, and pair it with this subtle, gentle, slow leaning back, there's a, okay, that feels nicer. I don't want to be in their business. I don't want to be the mediator, right? So with clients of mine who tend to notice, hey, I'm anxious a lot, we play with this of like, oh, like, where is that anxious? Like, how does that show up in the body? Are you like leaning forward and try to fix stuff and control things and whatever? Yeah. Okay, well, let's play with leaning forward. What is it like just to come back a little and find a restful center for a moment? And like, everybody has this like some settling of like coming back and like delight and realizing, oh, I can find a sweet spot. That's not actually my sweet spot. That's my familiar spot, but that's not actually my sweet spot, right? And people who have been protecting themselves by more withdrawing and being in the background and avoiding, we practice leaning back. And like, what is it like to come forward a little bit more? And we play in that range. There's relationship dynamics where one person is the overfunctioner or the underfunctioner dynamic that people fall into. And we play with that with this movement as well. Okay, if you're the overfunctioner, you tend to be leaning forward, ready to do all the things, take care of things, because you either think the other person is not competent, or you think it's going to be better if you do it, or safer if you do it, or whatever. And you keep that overfunctioning, underfunctioning dynamic going with this person. And so we practice like feeling that lean forward in the body. And what would it be like to lean back just a touch and let that person do the thing and give it a try? And same with the underfunction. Sometimes we're not necessarily an overfunctioner in all the areas of a relationship dynamic. It's certain ones. And in other areas of the relationship dynamic, you might be an underfunctioner. And so I think there's value in playing with all the different sides. And again, not making any side wrong, and also not making it right to be in the middle or right to be in the centered spot, or that the sweet spot is the only good spot. It's just about noticing what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what needs a reset, what helps me come to a reset. When I move here, when do I start noticing my breath changing, and like what kind of breath changing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed at some point there you had us sit up really straight in the middle, and you said, "I feel like there's a string." And immediately my story came up, the ballerina, there's a string holding the top of your head, and I felt resistance to it. But I thought, no, I don't know the rest of this sentence. What's the end of it? And it was the string coming out of your belly button and pulling you a little bit forward in your midsection. And
Yeah.
so the whole experience of sitting up really straight and rigidly with my rigid ideas about ballerinas suddenly turned into a very subtly different empowered feeling, like my solar plexus was sort of the boss.
Yes. Right. And like we've had people say, imagine you're shining your Care Bear light. For those of us who are from that era, all of a sudden I have a different stance and posture.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, totally. It's so
And
neat
yeah,
what you're saying too. Are you familiar with I know you're not at all on TikTok, but I
I'm not.
am. There's clips and there's a show called Couples Therapy with Dr. Orna where they just
I've
are
heard
showing
of.
you, and it's pretty incredible stuff. And now that you're mentioning the anxious leaning in and the perhaps overwhelmed leaning back, I'm seeing that as being true in all of the relationship dynamics where the partner is saying they have to do everything. They're leaning forward and the other partner's leaning back.
Yes. Right. And what's neat about playing with this movement, I think for the most part, most of us can say, I don't feel that that's very threatening. Just me
Mm.
sitting by myself, leaning a bit forward, leaning a bit back, finding where the sweet spot is. Right. And what I've noticed in working with people is they're like, oh, I've been practicing that a little, and not excessive amounts, just I've been aware. It's been in my, space of like noticing, hey, am I leaning forward? If I'm leaning forward, what is it like to lean back? Just a touch. And that's how I practiced. I would just, when I remember, notice, hey, am I leaning forward? Oh yeah, I'm leaning forward. What might it be like just to sit back a little? Or am I like pulling away? What is it like just to come forward a little? Changing nothing else about the interaction with the person. But people start realizing, holy crap, like I was leaning so forward and like so heated about this thing. And then I just decided to sit back a little bit. That's all I did. And I started feeling something different happening and the energy changing, right?
Mm.
And then I could bring from this sort of more sweet spot place, centered place, I had a little bit more clarity about what I needed to say next, or what I wanted to do, or what was not my responsibility to get into. So this is a very generally non-nervous system dysregulating way to practice something that can be really, really helpful in relationship and in life.
It's huge. Baby steps, massive impacts. I love it.
And if you're just at the beginning, if you just practice more centered, forward, back, and you just play in that place for a while, what happens is when you're in everyday life, you begin to notice more often when you're forward and back. But if you don't practice something like this or something similar that could help you have the awareness of your posture, how would you know that you're leaning forward? It just
Indeed.
feels normal to you. You have no contrast, right? The beauty of these practices is we like to give you contrast and for you to practice noticing contrast. Like, can you notice that leaning forward feels different than the middle? And can you notice that the middle feels different from leaning back? And then slowly can you notice that this degree of leaning back starts to feel worse than that degree of leaning back? And you start noticing the subtleties. Like if we were all more aware of the subtleties in the moment of what feels good and what doesn't, and we had the trust in ourselves to act upon that, our whole lives would change.
Yes, they
But
would.
often it's that we're not aware or we're too afraid to feel what's actually here right now. And this feels generally like it's okay enough to feel this. I have enough capacity, or I could bring on some supports to help me feel this.
One of our practices that I love so much for discovering preferences and subtleties in the body is the one hand, two hands, on and off. You want to do that one to close? Is there anything else you want to say about it?
I think just a general reminder that these practices that seem completely unrelated to life and what you're struggling with and what feels challenging and the things you think you need to do and learn and be better at to have more easeful, fulfilling relationships, like they can be simple and they make a
are
big
simple.
difference. And they like you imagine them to be completely irrelevant and unrelated. And that makes me excited to say, yes, they are. We don't always have to be in the muck to learn how to be in the muck.
Yeah,
right?
that's for sure.
So, okay, this practice is just noticing what it's like to have no hands on your body. And then when you're ready, placing one hand on your body. And right now I'm using hand on the front of the body, but you could choose if you want to place it somewhere different. And I'm just noticing what it feels like to have one hand here. And there's many sort of extra layers of this practice, but for the sake of something brief, I'll just give us the simplest version. Just feel that one hand. Does it feel good? Take it off. Remove that hand. Notice the difference. And then place it back on. And notice between on or off, which one feels a little bit better or a lot better. Or maybe it's different neutral. Right? Either is fine. And then placing one hand on the body and adding the second hand on top of that hand. And notice whether two hands, how that feels. And then also giving contrast. So take that top hand off and place it back on and try each one. And then maybe you want no hands, because maybe for you it's not between one hand or two. Maybe it's between no hands or two. Or maybe it's a different variation of one hand on the desk, one hand on your body. So this sort of gets to be like a buffet or a choose your own adventure. But what's cool about it is you get to try them first, right? So you get to taste the food and then decide whether you want to put it on your plate. You get to read a couple pages of the next adventure before you decide whether you want to turn to page 52 and read that version of the story.
Right? What a gift. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Gigi. Anything else you want to say on this episode?
I just keep playing with the little things.
It really helps with the bigger things.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, well then that's it for this week. Thank you guys for being with us. Please do like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share with somebody that you care about. And we'll see you next time.